Welcome, my friends, to the Josh Scanlon Podcast. Today is September 12th, 2018, episode 84. And I got an exciting one to share with you here today. We're going to introduce Jessica Stansberry from jessicastansberry.com. And Jessica is an internet marketing extraordinaire. She just does tons of internet marketing, how to help you build your business, either using YouTube, Facebook ads, AdWords, the whole thing, just how to build your business. And I just find it fascinating that we have an age now where anyone can have a business. It doesn't matter where you live, who you are, what gender you are, what race you are, nothing matters. If you have quality content to put out there, you can have a business. And so Jessica is a younger lady, probably I think she said 32, something like that. The couple kids living in the hills of Western North Carolina, just south of the Tennessee line. You can't get much more out in the sticks than that. But here she is, offering wonderful internet marketing services to anyone and everyone. And you can start with her YouTube channel. You can go to jessicastansberry.com. You can go to Facebook page, LinkedIn. You can find her anywhere, and you can hire her, not for one-on-one consulting anymore because she's grown so much that she doesn't have the time to do one-on-one, but you can sign up for her YouTube course. You can download her free YouTube stuff, which is what I've done so far. And it's just been it's incredible what is out there for anyone. The only thing, as I would tell you, though, the only thing you need to do is to have a passion for what you're going to do. If you like race cars and you know them and you think about race cars a lot and you read about race cars in your spare time, man, do a YouTube channel, do a podcast, do a Facebook group, anything about race cars. For heaven's sake, do a website or all of them. If you think you know race cars and you're into it, but you actually like college football, it's going to be awful hard to do something on a regular, consistent basis if you're not really into race cars. I mean, if you're just kind of as a hobby, that's one thing. But if you're thinking about it all the time, you're doing it all the time, and the passion is such that you can't wait to do another episode, however, it being a blog, an audio post, or video, man, just do it and just see what happens. And, pay. Jessica got a course on how to build a YouTube channel and a YouTube business. I think she said $997. So basically $1,000. Man, spend $1,000, take her course. And I haven't been through the course, so I can't tell you is legit or not. I just know what I've seen on her YouTube channel so far for free. It's just been incredible. And I've seen a lot of crap on YouTube, my friends. There are some people that are wonderful out there and a lot that aren't, and a lot that want to separate you from your money. That's why I asked Jessica to be on this, my podcast, because I'd love to introduce her to other people as they kind of contemplate their own future of getting out of the corporate grind. And as I said this a million times a Sunday, I have been liberated from getting out of the corporate grind. I can say what I want, do what I want, and you may or may not like it. And if you don't like it, you'll move on. But you don't need that many people to like it to be successful. And whatever success is for you, I don't care. And frankly, you don't care what success is for me. But at the end of the day, there are 330 million people in the U.S. alone, and all you need is a few of them. Just a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage to like what you're doing, and you can make enough money to make a living for sure. Now, whether or not you can, have that, take that moon trip with Jeff Bezos, I don't know, probably not. But you can still do good things and be liberated and enjoy what you're doing on your schedule as opposed to working for the boss. Just something wonderful about that, especially as I do my financial planning. I tell people all the time, if your job is killing you, get the hell out. Now, don't just up and run, and flippantly and say, I'm out of here, stupid boss. If you don't have any money, you got $8 million of debt. But man, put a plan of action in. What I would suggest is if you're just hating your work, give yourself a year on the sidelines to learn YouTube, to learn podcasting, to learn blogging, WordPress, not WordPress.com, but actual WordPress.org. Learn that stuff. That way you can kind of get a base down. And so what you'd want to do is you want to get your own domain name, joeschmo.com, and start building a YouTube channel under youtube.com/Joe Schmo. Start building a blog post under www.joeschmo.com through wordpress.org. Start doing a podcast like what I'm doing here on anchor.fm. It's free. Post it out to iTunes and just start getting practice doing it. And then once you start getting practice, have a pretty good know-how, you start developing some skill set, then you can switch over to more professional. Instead of being joeschmo.com, let's say racecarswithjoe.com, whatever it is. That would be kind of like your professional site, your professional YouTube channel, your professional podcast, whatever you want to do. But then you'll have the basics down, because a lot of people, I think they say, no one, I'm going to be stupid. No one knows who I am, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're right. When you start, no one's going to listen to you. No one knows who the heck you are. And literally you're talking yourself. But you'll find quickly, if you do it on a regular, consistent basis, that people will begin to listen to you. So a lot of the times you learn on your own while no one's listening to you and still publish and post stuff. Again, no one's going to see it. I just tell you, the first 2 months, no one is going to see it. No one's going to subscribe. But after about 2 months or so, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you're going to start seeing some traffic. Not much, and it won't be much for a few more months after that. But if you're putting consistent content out there, you will start seeing it. And then you'll start feeling, you're going to feel comfortable within 30 days, guaranteed, as long as you're doing it on a daily basis. If you're doing it on a daily basis, you'll feel comfortable enough within 30 to 60 days that you'll feel like, I can start doing this on my business site, racecarswithjoe.com. I can start posting stuff out there. I can start posting videos on youtube.com/racecarswithjoe. And then what will happen is you'll slowly start building that presence on your business site slowly. Again, it's going to be slow, but within 6 months, you'll have a big enough presence that you say, I enjoy doing this. I might not be making much money, but I'm making enough where I can think I can turn this into a full-fledged deal within another 6 months or so. And then there's no stopping it. I mean, literally there's no stopping it. And that's kind of what I did, actually. And so far, so good. I love it. I haven't made any profits yet. I'm still I don't make enough to pay all the bills. I'm still running to my 401k, but I'm making more each month than I did the month before, just because I'm getting my knowledge out there and people seem to enjoy it. And YouTube pays me a little bit for their ads. I do have some customers that are contacting me, so it's good. And so just listen to Jessica. I think you'll enjoy it a lot. Again, it's jessicastansberry.com. Berry, like strawberry, Berry. I think you get a lot out of this the podcast for sure. And I wish you the best in your endeavors. I know what it's like in the corporate grind. Jessica talks about the same. And I just, life's too short. So good luck to you, my friends. And definitely stay tuned for the podcast. And we'll see you next time. Thanks now. All right, my friends. So welcome to the Josh Scanlon Podcast. I am so excited to bring on Jessica Stansberry from North Carolina to talk about all things YouTube, all things business marketing, all things entrepreneurship. I came across Jessica just on a YouTube video. Imagine that. It was just fantastic. I love her take of things. It's so much on YouTube, and I love YouTube. I mean, I'm addicted to it. If you follow my podcast or my own channel, you know that. I just like a different perspective of it. And that's how I just came across Jessica's perspective. And it was just awesome. And I said, it'd be cool to get her on the podcast just to talk about who she is, what she's doing, any tricks of the trade for those who are entrepreneur or thinking about it. So Jessica, welcome to the podcast. I'm absolutely excited you can be here for sure.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Before we get started, I do want to say, I do my YouTube channel and podcast are for financial planning. And one of the things, Jessica, which actually just occurred to me while I was yapping right there is, I do think a lot of people just go to the corporate grind because they don't know any other way. And just you have a college degree, you got your family, the whole thing. And I'm hoping maybe, and when I'll put a link to your own YouTube channel that, maybe we could talk about some ways that people who are thinking about maybe leaving the corporate grind and going in the liberating mode of being self-employed, or at least just somewhat entrepreneurial, that you can give some tidbits for them here today. Because I get this question a lot, Jessica. I don't know if I'm ready to retire. I hate my job, but. So just before we get started, any thoughts on that from your perspective as someone who engages with small business owners and people who want to be small business owners?
Yeah. So, it's really funny. My husband and I actually just had a conversation because he was telling me a story. God knows what it was, but he was telling me a story and it was about some guy back in the 1900s or late 1800s in his family that had basically back then in my area, you could go to the courthouse and you could pay up the taxes on a piece of property, and then you now owned it. And so he was talking about how this ancestor of his had done this. He had went through and he had he just would go and buy a bunch of land. And he was telling me like that this whole area that we live in used to be owned by his family. And I stopped and I was like, have you ever noticed that anytime you talk about somebody being super successful in life, or, you know, for lack of a better term, being quote unquote rich, right? Mm-hmm. Or being able to do things that are above and beyond what most people are able to do, it's because they are self-employed, always. And he was like, I know, you're right. And I told him, I was like, there's a whole quote, and I'll butcher it because I love quotes, but I'm also horrible at like remembering them. But there's a quote somewhere around the world that basically says, if you don't build your dreams, someone else will hire you to build theirs.
Oh, man.
And yeah, and that's a big thing for me is for me, I live in this teeny tiny little town in North Carolina where basically you get out of college, and if you want to stay here, you work at one of 3 companies and you live your life and you work your 30 years and like that's all you do. And when I got out of college, I actually did get a job at one of those 3 companies and I hated it. So I was like, you know what? I can't do this. When my first son was born, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I've got to go home. And from there, a business was born. But what I really say about people, or for people who are like looking to make that jump or thinking about it, not quite sure, is to know what's just on the other side. Like it's really, really scary. And if you're not motivated and you're not like ready to do it, that's one thing. But if you're motivated and you believe in yourself, like the other side of that fence is amazing. So I say just jump.
Man, I could not agree more. I left my corporate grind a year and a half ago, Jessica, and it's the most liberating, 6 months in March of 2018.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's recently.
Oh, man, the most liberating thing. Everyone says the one thing I ask an entrepreneur or an independent self-employed person is, what do you wish you did earlier, or what do you wish you did differently? Also, I wish I would have started sooner. I'm obviously there are people fail. I get all that, but at the end of the day, oh my goodness, this is what I tell people all the time. We're so trained to put off enjoyment of our life until we hit some age of 65 or something like that. And then it's sad though. You know what I mean, Jessica? I mean, everyone's saying,
I can't
do it until I'm 65. Then 65, you got knee surgery, your hips going out, and
yeah. It's so true. And, a lot of times like people retire and they like don't live that long afterwards to enjoy it. And, it's really, it's funny, but it's not funny all at the same time. My brother-in-law is getting ready to retire from the Marines. So he is much younger than most people retiring. He's not even 40 yet. He'll be 40 next year. Or maybe he's 40 this year. Anyway, he's retiring from the Marines. And so he's able to go into like a whole second career.
Yeah.
And he's like, let's just say a prayer that I don't just like drop over of a heart attack right after I retire. Cause I'm so excited for this like new chapter, and I'm like, oh yeah. Like, cause if I would have to wait to, travel or go on like great vacations or whatever until I'm retired, like what's the point in that? First of all, you don't look near as good in a bathing suit.
Or just be able to go take your kid to the softball game because you're too busy sitting in traffic or something like that. You got to miss all. I mean, look, people got to do what they got to do. I mean, whatever they want to do, I don't care. But anyway. So let's go back. So here you are, small town girl in Western North Carolina. You went to college. You probably had no clue that you'd be ultimately in a YouTube self-employed business coach and all that. So what happened? How did you end up doing? How'd you end up getting where you are today?
Yeah. So like I said, I hated my job. Well, okay, let me start back just a little bit because in college, and all the way through my corporate job, I worked there 3 years before I quit. I always had a side hustle.
Okay.
I always I would design business cards or something on the side because I had a pretty heavy design background. Okay. My degree is in advertising and with a minor in marketing. So in advertising, it's a communication major. So basically it's a lot of business, but also a lot of like creativity, which is pretty cool. So I had freelanced for years. I mean, eons at that, at the point when I decided to quit my job. And I had this, this supposedly perfect job. I had this job where everybody was like, you got in that company. Like, that's amazing. Nobody, a lot of people want their whole lives to work for this company. And while the company itself was great, I hated my job. And I tell a whole story. So I co-host a podcast called All Up in Your Lady Business. And in one of the very first episodes of that podcast, I tell the whole story about my like exit from corporate. But short version, I basically had some things happen when I went back from maternity leave, because I did go back, and I like basically got in trouble for things that I shouldn't have, or that got blamed on me while I was on maternity leave or whatever, and had what I call a bathroom floor moment. And it basically, I had a newborn son, had went back to work, had left him to be jumped all over at work. And that night I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't understand. And we could not, and I'm saying this on a financial planning podcast, but we could not afford for me to quit my job. Could not. And, but my husband also was like, you know what? You can't be miserable the rest of your life. So let's figure it out. So a month after I went back from maternity leave, I quit and started freelancing and doing just different graphic pieces and websites for people.
Hold on a second. How did you get those people to hire you out, if you don't mind me asking?
No, I don't mind at all. So actually what I did was before I started the web design piece, I was just freelancing graphic work here locally. So, I would give somebody a business card design and they would tell their friend that I did it and, whatever. And looking back, I made like no money because I was charging basically nothing, which whatever. But as far as the web design piece, I was like, you know what? I want to start a blog. Like, I just wanted to start a blog. I was a new mom and I was reading all these blogs and I was like, okay, I want to start a blog. But I also did not want it to be ugly. And especially in 2000, when did I have my son? 2010, everything was like these templated blogspot, ugly blogs. And so I was like, I've got to find a better way to build this. And so I did. And then as soon as I did, and my blog picked up traction, people were saying like, hey, can you design mine for me? And I'd be like, yeah, sure.
So people just reach out to you. Just out of the blue. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Good. And then it kind of spiraled from there. I started joining some Facebook groups, and small ones, very small Facebook groups, and people would hire me to do it. But at that point in my business, I was charging like $150 for an entire website.
Oh.
And yeah, it was dumb.
You're hired right now.
Do what?
You're hired right now for $150.
I know, right? And the crazy part is, so that was in, so let's say 2010 to 2012, I charged that much. In 2013 to 2014, I started charging like $300 or $800, like depending on what they needed. So it was getting a little better. And then I actually shut the doors to my web design business in 2015 when I started doing more marketing coaching and business coaching. And when I quit doing web design, my last client paid over $3,000 for a website. So I definitely went up through the ranks for sure. But that's basically what happened is I was doing web design. I started putting out YouTube videos and podcast content to teach other people. At first, I was teaching other people how to design their own website because I was coming in contact with a lot of babypreneurs and brand new people who were like, I can't afford to pay for a website, So I had my first course ever was teaching people how to design their own website. And then I kind of was like, you know what, this is making good enough money. I'm going to shut down and stop doing it for people. And it's kind of morphed from there. So I now teach marketing strategy and YouTube and all of that good jazz.
What was the actually real quick? When I go back to college, so Appalachian State.
Yep. That's
Jessica had
right.
to correct me on the pronunciation before we got on the podcast, folks. Appalachian State.
Appalachian. Everybody says it wrong. Everybody, except yeah. And everywhere I go, every time I go speak at a conference, I'm like, y'all, just so you know, it's Appalachian, not Appalachian, or however everybody else says it. And they're like, no, it's not. I'm like, it really is.
Well, because they think the Appalachian Trail, so it must be Appalachian State, right? That's what the
Right. And see, actually, you're saying the Appalachian Trail wrong.